Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by 10th Man, Paul Hall, Brian's Logic, Arwin, and a whole bunch of people in Discord. So welcome one and all.
Good afternoon.
Hey, hey. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Hello.
How's the weather over there, Nathan?
Beautiful here. Clear skies, sunny day. It's absolutely idyllic. Lovely temperature, nice breeze. Couldn't have a better day.
You got air conditioning or?
No, I've got a fan.
Ah, you got many fans.
I don't know about that. Any signs of a physical geometric sphere edge horizon, formerly known as Earth curve?
Formerly?
Formerly.
No, but Anthony is looking for proof of spherical excess.
Spherical excess? What's that?
Basically, it's a curved triangle which doesn't make up the same degrees internally that a flat triangle makes.
Like a curved edge triangle?
And it's one of the claims from the both sides.
Like a curved edge triangle?
A curved triangle.
Like they draw on the globe when
Yeah.
when they're doing like a triangular journey from one point to another, then back and then to the starting point. And because they claim it's on a presupposed spherical Earth, it would have a curved shape to the triangle. Is that what you're talking about?
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Okay. So you say Sleeping Warrior is asking for people to demonstrate this?
Yeah, he's looking for any actual proof of this.
Okay, curved triangle it is. If anybody wants to help out Sleeping Warrior with some evidence that we have curved triangles over presupposed spherical surfaces, then yeah, feel free to furnish him with that evidence. Shout out to Henrik for the super chat. Really appreciate your support. Doesn't say anything, just gives me money. Thank you very much indeed. Any signs of axial rotation?
Actually, no.
Actually, no.
Nope.
Not
Nice
from the
one,
ground.
Arwin. Nice one, Arwin. Actually, no.
Got a load of props yesterday, Arwin did, in the Uncut and After Show chat on the second channel. Subscribe today to my second channel if you do want to keep up to date with the Uncut and After Show, which goes out before and after the live show, obviously, but pre-recorded. But in that chat, there was a lot of people noting your ahead of the curve nature, Arwin, pointing out that in many instances there's things that we will dwell on and labour the point of when we've all got a really thorough understanding of it. And it's something that you've often discussed prior to us even coming close to even understanding it. So you got a lot of props yesterday. Just you weren't there. You're normally in the chat on that show because you're a moderator. But yeah, you weren't there. And I just wanted to let you know, on the one time you weren't there, you were getting loads of props from people about how, well, generally how smart you are. So there you go. I just thought you'd like to know.
Cool. Thanks. Thanks for informing me.
I wasn't
Yeah, I
saying
can't be
those things.
everywhere at once.
I was just
Especially
making a
with
joke.
this heat, man. It's just, oof.
Well, you were pointing out on yesterday's show, so you were saying, you know, when we were talking about the not actual size of the sun not changing through its not actual position, not moving, etc., etc., you were like, oh, I pointed this out ages ago. And I kind of brushed past it on the show and I listened to it back. But then when everyone in the chat was pointing it out, like, yeah, Arwin is generally ahead of the curve with these things. But, you know, I don't know what it is that people just brush past what you say. maybe it goes in one ear and out the other, I don't know. But ultimately speaking, you are generally, when I look back on some of the old debates, ahead of most people in terms of most subjects. It's just the way it is.
What do you mean when you say Arwen's ahead of the curve?
Yeah, I wanted to say with curve.
The rectangular looping curve.
Ooh. Okay.
Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
It's over there. It has an angular size and
Distance.
to change a lot.
Distance.
And there's nothing there that I can extrapolate any concrete evidence that suffices for a distance.
Finally.
Get there at the end.
So no actual distance.
Nope. It's just there and it's hot.
May as well.
You want to imagine it being very, very far away, but it's not going to help.
So B. Rain, or Brian, the other Brian, asked us on yesterday's show how we would cover a question he was asked in regards to the sun. So he was presumably asked, although he didn't phrase the exact question he had, why does the sun not change in size throughout the day? And the rebuttal to that is to say, well, the size of the sun is a not actual size, it's an angular size, not actual size. So to paraphrase the question you're being asked as a flat earther, no doubt, in this regard, it's why does the not actual size of the sun not change in not actual size as it moves from its refracted not actual position? That's the question they're asking you. And if you can parrot that back to them, it descends the question into absurdity.
Well, I would respond, well, I don't actually know.
Yeah, we don't have an actual size of the sun, that's the bottom line.
Right.
Any scientific evidence of the reification fallacy that is gravity?
Now, lots of concepts that are thought about to supposedly displace things, even though technically the people that have handed out this information about gravity tell everyone, no, it doesn't actually do that. I know we describe it all the time, but it doesn't technically do that. So you got to stop thinking about it before you break your mind. But yeah, the ballers don't listen. They're just going to think it's Newtonian force anyway.
Yeah, it's 105
But
years
it
out of date.
reduces down, Arwen.
Hold on. Just 1 second, Brian. Did you want to present something, Paul?
Oh, just the surprising place, or the surprising source of gravity. Just the surprise. It just surprises you when you really think about it. This is that one I was talking about yesterday. The squirrel is stationary in space. It does not move, so it's not moving in space. But if you go over here, further you get away from the gravitational force, the time speeds up at the top, and it slows down at the bottom, causing the squirrel to move down towards the Earth. So we didn't know. I mean, I know we talked about time is just a concept, and I get that. But this is the Glober's explanation for how we have gravity.
Can you put your cursor on the guy with the lab coat?
This guy here? That guy? Or what?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you want me to do?
Well, I just want to see the guy in the lab coat because this picture is animated with a squirrel, and then the people see this guy with the lab coat and say, "Okay, now look at this. He's wearing white lab coat, so he must know what he's talking about." Now go back to your picture.
Hold on.
With the squirrel.
Not yet. He's wearing a white lab coat under a Ghostbusters t-shirt. Get it right.
That threw me off.
Oh my God.
Look at the name of it. And actually, I just thought of something. Look at what his name of his channel is. The Science Asylum. Okay, I just got that. I'm a little slow.
So why did he need the squirrel? Why did he need the squirrel cartoon? Why couldn't he just give us a practical demonstration with him in place of the squirrel? Or would it be because he can't show us the conceptual medium of space-time?
It knew it had
I don't know,
some-
maybe it's because squirrels want nuts.
My point is that he's just equally as good as a demonstration as the squirrel, right? He could equally take the place of the squirrel. There he is on camera. He's not camera shy. So why does he need this squirrel with a diagram with time and space on each axis?
Oh, and see, look, if you can see here, time is out. This is supposed to be the Earth. And further away from the Earth, time is faster, but it's slower towards the Earth. And that's what causes the sun to or the moon to orbit.
What?
That's the Earth. The Earth looked flat.
Time is
I know.
faster. Really?
I
We
think this
covered
guy's
this on
playing
yesterday's
games
show.
here.
Yes, they claim that satellites travel slower the higher they go. Now, where are they travelling slower? Well, they're travelling... It's slower or faster? It is slower, isn't it? Am I
It's
right?
slower out away from the gravitational
Yeah,
source. It's supposed to be fast, or slower towards it. Yeah, anyway, go ahead.
Slower towards it, so it's faster. So their clocks are going quicker. No, time's going faster. So the time is losing time. Is that correct? It doesn't matter. It's not relevant to the point. Look, the point is the clocks are going at a slightly different rate on the satellites according to their rhetoric. So because of this gravitational effect, they're losing or gaining, whichever it may be, I'm confused, in a medium that doesn't exist. So their proof of this comes from things that are floating around in a sky vacuum. So there's never going to be a practical demonstration of this beyond their claim to have satellites in a fake medium, begging the question orbits. Beyond that, it's cartoons. There's no demonstrations of this.
What they claim is the closer you get to the speed of light, which would be space, okay, which would be space-time in space, that would mean that the further away from Earth you get, the faster time moves. That's what the claim is.
Well, let me make it more simple.
Because you're getting close.
I'm sorry. I wanted to bring this up for a reason. The proof that gravity exists is I can draw it on a graph on a piece of paper or on a computer model. That's my proof. Because I can diagram it out on a graph. That's the proof.
Paul, that's a bit of a squirrely argument.
Hold on.
I'd like to
hold
add
on.
something, if I may. I'd like
Before
to
you do,
you know
just
what?
before you do, just before you do, just keep.
I will keep it
Just
short.
before you do. Right, so no, Paul. No, that's merely a concept. It's merely an abstraction. It's merely maths. It's not existing in reality. Go ahead, Arwin.
Right. I just wanted to take note that despite the suggestion of the squirrel sort of being 3D in the example, that the diagram that he's using to show space and time kind of seems a little bit autographic to me. Wouldn't you say?
It's a graph. So, I mean, yeah, you're highlighting the fact that that's not how we view things. We don't view them on these two axes. We live in a three-dimensional world, and what do you know? He seems to have the width axis with time. The fourth dimension is represented by a width axis. Well, that makes no sense in terms of what we see, but that just typifies the fact that it's merely mathematical.
Yep. And it's just a typical autographic view setup to represent it. So autographic view, I think, is probably drawn into a lot more conceptualizations than we even realize, not just the globe side view and all that. Just they like to do that a lot.
Arwin's objection, Paul, is to say that this squirrel is just travelling left to right on the screen. He's not travelling through this fourth dimension of time. And it's not showing that either on this graph.
Well, you're right. It's not showing that on the graph. But and his idea, if you listen to video, the reason the squirrel is in a stationary position in space, I don't know if you see my cursor or not, but the squirrel's not moving in space. Okay, which means it's not moving. It's not accelerating. It's not doing anything other than just sitting there. But as it progresses through time, or it's moving through time, that's where the acceleration starts to come into play. You get that?
Okay. And that's represented by it not moving through time, but moving from left to right on the page, correct?
Right.
I see. So, in other words, taking something that is claimed to not be moving even through the concept, by moving it on an axis that's not a fourth dimension, you can represent it as moving when it's not.
Right. because it's moving through time.
No. It's moving from left to right on the page with an axis labeled time. You can't move through time. You can't move through time. Time is a concept. So all that's happening is the squirrel, this cartoon, is moving from left to right on a page on an axis labeled time. You can't move through a concept. That's impossible. But in terms of what they're describing here mathematically, it's moving left to right on a page with an axis labelled with this concept called time.
What it is that
what it is, what? Go on, Brian.
What it is sorry, there was a motorbike passing me there. I had to stand in over. What it is basically it's that time is moving at the speed of light. Right, when you're out in space. That's the basics of it. It's about light time. So time is moving at the speed of light. Whereas time moves at its own normal pace here on the ground. But the further we get away from the Earth, the closer we get to time moving at 671 million miles an hour. As that's the speed of light.
What?
Yeah,
time doesn't move.
That's their nonsense.
Time doesn't move.
Thank you, Arwin.
That's their nonsense. Yeah, okay, I know it's not my. I'm only the messenger.
Yeah, but it's ridiculous.
It doesn't move. You can't move through it. You can't bend it. You can't lift it. It doesn't push things. It doesn't pull things. It's just a concept.
Yep.
That's why under Einstein, after all this rhetoric we just went through, that's why under Einstein, gravity is not a force because of this. There's no acceleration through time. If I'm stationary, there's no force because you got to have acceleration to have a force. That's why they have to say under Einsteinian theory, gravity is not a force. It's just an effect.
Epic. Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
Nope. They like to talk about their version of science, the just so story tradition of pseudoscience. And they like to talk about that all day. But when it comes to actual science and experiment, no. It's pretty admitted that they don't do that.
I think we can poke a big black hole in that statement.
Boom, boom. Hey, Chocolate.
Oh, go ahead, Chocolate.
Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
How y'all doing?
You're right in time. We need the Michio Kaku quotes.
I would like to say one thing real quick before we move on too far.
Go ahead, Paul. Go ahead.
We talked about no equations in this last conversation, none whatsoever. But I think we understood the concept very well. Do you agree? So you don't have to understand mathematics to understand a concept. You might be able to describe it mathematically better or whatever. But I think we talked about it pretty well, don't you think, without having no mathematics?
Yeah, I think it's important that we have these conversations more because from what we're hearing on the grapevine, it's even though it's 105 years down the line, it makes me laugh. The people are starting to appreciate that gravity's not a force now, which is great for us because pummeling Einstein's mathematics is so much faster.
For some reason you broke up on mine. I don't know what happened. I didn't hear everything you just said. But
I said it's good news for us that they're finally realising that gravity's not a force. That's 105-year out-of-date rhetoric superseded by Einsteinian mathematics of pseudo-Ramonian force space. Well, it's far quicker for us to absolutely pummel the conceptual mathematics, the abstractions described by Einstein, far faster. So, even though at the moment it's something we're unfamiliar with, we're typically telling the fundies, you're parroting the wrong pseudoscience, gravity's not a force. That rhetoric was replaced 105 years ago by Einsteinian mathematics. So parrot the right pseudoscience. But we never ever get to the stage where they actually do. and we can pummel the Einsteinian mathematics. We never get to that stage because they constantly assert it's a force. In the face of Brian Cox, gravity's not really a force at all, or George Musa, gravity's not a force, or any of the other bazillion quotes that QE's got listed, where it's explicitly described not as a force. Anyway.
But even under, I've actually got a quiet house. That's why I can get to talk for a change. Even under Newton's laws, you have two problems, and they're both in M and also in A. If M is just a conceptual concept, I guess that's redundant, a concept, and A, if you don't have acceleration, there's no force, you've just eliminated Newton just right off the bat. There's no, so if something's not accelerating, how's there a force applied?
Yeah, but that's far more complicated. That's far more complicated, especially when they can give you an example where they describe if mass, then mass attracts mass, with the stupid hypothesis that they put when we put them to task on the Cavendish quote-unquote experiment, which it's not. Well, that takes ages. Far easier to say, yeah, we're just talking about maths here. Show me space-time. It's on this graph moving right to left or left to right. No, show me space-time in physicality. This pseudo-Ramonian force space you talk of, that's described and labelled as pseudo, and described in an abstraction. That would be mathematics. It's not going to get shown. Well, that's fast, isn't it? You just cut the legs off Einstein in about 3 minutes.
Well, let's unpack space. I'm just thinking, we should probably unpack what space is for a quick second. Space is the idea of a volume. You have length, breadth, and width. But that's just talking about what something occupies. But you got to talk about the something that's in that concept. Like my body supposedly takes up a certain volume, length, breadth, and width of space. But really, that's just a description of supposedly my body, but not space itself.
Yeah, volume. Space is real. Outer space is fake. Outer space, the sky vacuum, is fake. Space, the amount of volume something can occupy, that's a perfectly reasonable description of something.
So now, if that's the case, if that's true, then when you talk about bending of space, or whatever you want to call it, how do you bend a volume? How do you change a volume? How do you reduce, or how do you do that? That makes no sense.
You change the amount of surface area. So if you're in you can have
that's
a piston.
my department.
Go on, Arwin.
Bending of space. Well,
is your question,
space?
Is your question how can you compress a volume?
Well, maybe the trajectory within a volume might be altered. So maybe what is exactly one direction in one part of the volume might be another direction in another. It sounds extremely confusing, and there's very little proof for this, of course. But
if I squeeze a balloon, I can reduce its volume in one area, but it has to expand in another area. So the volume hasn't really changed. So are you saying that's what's happening when you bend space? You're squeezing it, bending it in one area, then it expands in another area. Is that what you're driving at?
Well, no. Because you're describing, there would be no pressure change in what you're describing. So the volume hasn't actually changed. If you squeeze one side and another gets bigger, well, then you're not actually changing the volume at all. I thought you were asking in regards to Boyle's law, i.e. decreasing the volume and increasing the pressure. But if you're just saying, well, you just squeeze it.
I'm just saying that's kind of the idea, though. If you bend a volume, like if I have a cube and I press in one side of it and I make it more curved, so I'm bending that section of the cube. So does the volume reduce inside the cube?
Yeah, well then you apply Boyle's law, so the pressure will increase.
So wouldn't that cause maybe the other sides to start pressing out, depending on the nature of the cube? If it was,
you keep moving the goalpost on me.
It presses in all directions you can.
Look, either you're just deforming the shape of the container, in which case the volume won't change. It's just where you have a perfect cube and you describe pushing in one side and the other side pops out. Well, you're not changing the pressure. It's just moving the shape of the container itself. But you're not going to actually change the pressure inside. Whereas if it's a solid enough container that you can push in one side with a huge amount of force, but the other side can withstand it, in other words, it doesn't bulge out, then you will increase the pressure. That's an application of Boyle's law. In all of these examples, go on.
But they're not talking about
You can't change space
bending
with any
space. They're
object.
talking about bending space-time.
No, he's
What the
not.
hell
He's
is
talking.
that?
Yeah, but
No,
that
it's not.
doesn't exist.
No, he's not. He's talking about bending an object. I had cube, I had balloon. He's talking about bending an object. He's not talking about bending space-time. Well, how did you get to that, Chocolate? What's going on?
I thought Paul was playing baller.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if he's playing baller or not. He's not bending space-time. He's bending balloon and cube.
Oh, all right. Okay.
I think you're starting to see my point.
The matter.
Oh, go ahead, Brian.
Go on, whoever that was.
I think it was Brian.
What I was
Go
going to
ahead,
say is the matter. Thanks, Paul. The matter that is bending space-time is slowing down time when it bends it. So, which is a secondary effect. Not just the effect of gravity happens then. It's a secondary effect of time slowing down, right, in accordance with that matter. Let's say in their world, in their rhetoric, the Earth, right? Time is slowed down. But when you move away from that matter back into space-time, you're moving back to when time is moving at the speed of light, which is 671 million miles an hour. And the speed of light is a pre-assumption. But they look past all those things. But either way, that's the whole idea. When you bend the space-time, when matter bends space-time, it not only creates the effect of gravity, but the effect of time slowing down.
So this came to you when you bumped your head and then came up with the flux capacitor, right?
Say that again to me, Nathan. Sorry, I missed it.
Said this came to you when you bumped your head
I missed that
and
part.
the idea for the flux capacitor came to you thereafter, right?
Yes.
Well, wait a minute,
That's
though.
exactly
You can't
the
slow
point.
down time. Time, for a start, is a concept. So you can't bend it, slow it down, speed it up. You can't travel through it. It's conceptual.
Well, and also time.
Yes.
If time is, so what you're saying is time. If mass can bend space, does that mean mass can reduce the volume of the space?
Time can't
And
do.
No,
Time can't do anything.
Well, now I'm talking about mass now. See, I'm not talking about mass. You missed it, Nathan. I'm talking about mass now. Mass is a concept too. So this mass can compress the volume of space
What's mass?
or change. It's a concept.
Mass?
It's a concept.
Compress the volume of space.
Okay, let's just
But
clear
that
this up.
doesn't do it. That's
God.
not what it does.
It's driving me nuts. Concepts don't do things.
It bends the space. It
Can it
doesn't
do-
compress it. It just
Right,
bends the space in order for
no one's listening
the
to you.
mass to virtually
What's
fall.
bending
Nobody's
space?
listening. Concepts don't do things. You can't put a wagon and attach it to freedom and set it to work. It's a concept. You can't put it to work.
Well,
It doesn't do anything.
remember, we've already
Say 9
defined what
months
space is
causing
too. It's a
pregnancy.
volume. So if you're bending it, are you reducing the volume? You're
No.
bending it.
No.
Okay,
If you,
so
yeah,
what
but
is
you're
it?
doing
What
that.
that
If you're
is.
bending it, you're doing that, aren't you?
The bending is just a name they give to it. There's no actual bending or even something that comes close to the description of bending involved with the presupposed process. So it's more like a red
there is an
herring.
Arwen.
It's just a distraction away.
Well, hang on a second. Let me find something real quick. I want to show you something. Bear with me. I'm going to show you what the bending of
Space-time is linear. Space-time is like in their rhetoric is a linear sheet, and the matter bends it or distorts it. That's what happens. But it's a linear sheet.
As we're talking
It
about
doesn't mean
space.
anything.
Uh,
The bending of space. It doesn't
It's
even
driving me
mean
mad.
anything.
As we're talking
Someone
about,
cut this thing off at the
It's
knee.
hard in their world.
Tough
as
man,
we
which-
are talking about space in this context, is there any evidence that you can have gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container?
It isn't a necessary antecedent. You just made that up.
Walk outside.
Hold on, I
Wait a
heard
minute,
Rumpus's
before we-
voice.
Is that rumpus?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Before we move,
Yeah, you
before we
just-
move out, though, see this? I brought up this picture to the right, and this little grid system is supposed to represent space. But if you move closer to the mass, look at the volume of the grid pattern as you get closer. That looks like the volume is reducing. You see that? You understand what I'm driving at?
That's a drawing.
I know. I get it. It's a concept, but I'm trying to make a point.
No, it's a
just
donut. Look at the other one.
We just had the antecedent of Adham join us. Let's go there.
Okay, I'll drop. Go ahead. Go ahead,
How can you draw a tangent point to something that you can't see?
You don't have to be able to see something for it to be happening.
If you can't see it, how can you reference it or measure it?
Right. If what you're actually trying to say, your usual gibberish, is that you're
No, what I'm trying to say is, how can you measure something that you can't see?
yeah, if you can measure it with a device if you want to.
How can you measure it if you can't see it?
Lots of things are measured without being able to see the thing in question.
Okay. How can you measure a geometric tangent point if you can't see it?
Well, we don't measure geometric tangent points because of refraction.
So when you say it comes within 5% of it, how do you know it's come within 5% of it if it hasn't been measured and you can't measure it?
Well, we have got other means of measuring. You've got
other means of measuring it, even though I'm asking you very specifically how you can measure it, even though you can't see it. You seem to be telling me you've got other means of measuring it. And I'm asking specifically how you're going to do that if you can't see it.
Well, you can see where... you work off the effective radius, the effective horizon.
Sorry, no, we're not going to beg the question of an effective radius. No. We're not going to immediately beg the question. Stop. How can you measure something that you cannot see?
We don't. We measure something you...
So you don't. So you can't measure a geometric sphere edge horizon to assert that we have an R value then, because you can't see it and therefore you can't measure it. And you're talking through me. Why are you talking through me?
We measure the apparent horizon.
That's not a geometric tangent point, which is what I asked for.
It's close.
I don't care. Don't tell me about something that is not what I've asked about. You've made it clear. It can't be measured. Therefore, the only thing you can do is beg the question and assume you've got a radius value to begin with and compare it to that presupposed measurement. That's all you can do. So it doesn't exist. It can't be measured. So you can't get within 5% of it because it can't be seen or measured. And again, while I'm saying this, you are talking through me.
You won't let me answer.
You've told me. You have answered and I'm responding to your answer and you are again talking through me. Now I've asked how you can measure a tangent point to I'm going to kick you out. Bye-bye. You're not going to sit there talking through me every time I summarise the point. You've answered me. How can you measure it? You can't. And when I push you, you say we're going to assume that it's based on the effective horizon. Hold on, Brian. Don't rumpus me also. I'm going to make my conclusion without rumpus talking through me. Not that the audience gets that crap that I have to endure on this side of the mic. Fact. Rumpus has confirmed you can't measure it. This geometric horizon, it can't be measured. So it's not a geometric tangent point. Now, if he says we measure something that's based on an effective radius that we've already got, that's begging the question. Inventing something that doesn't exist and cannot be measured to. It doesn't exist. That's the end of it. So telling me that you're just going to beg the question doesn't get around this problem. And talking through me constantly while I point that out will merely get you removed. It's not going to work. Your distraction technique's been clocked. It's never going to work here ever again. Don't talk through me while I summarise the fact that you cannot measure a geometric tangent point. Now, we've got people like Mr. Smiley, what's his name? Mr. Sensible, who shows us a ball. Now, he puts it through a magnifying glass, something that isn't going on in reality. But nevertheless, he shows us an edge to that ball. And if you've got a ball, like Neil deGrasse Tyson holds up with his beach ball, it's got an edge. Now, he claims that you can't see that edge curving at 3 inches above the beach ball representative of 120,000 feet for Felix Baumgartner. But ultimately, he's saying that this horizon is the edge of the globe. And he's saying you can't see it bending. But it's definitely claimed to be the edge. And Al Biruni's claimed to have measured to that geometric tangent point that is claimed to be the edge. Now, we've proved beyond all certitude that the geometric horizon, formerly known as Earth curve doesn't exist. It only exists in the maths. So you're never going to be able to say, well, it comes within 5% of it, because you can't see it. It only exists in maths. In other words, Earth curve is yet another reification fallacy. It's you reifying mathematics that don't exist into a position that is not measurable, but is compared to a presupposition of a horizon that's already got a radius value based on it. Well, that's the conclusion of this point. Don't have a geometric horizon. You absolutely require one to do geometry. Begging the question of it and just saying, well, I assume that the apparent horizon, all horizons are apparent, is based on my presupposition that we've got a radius value, so I can derive a 5% value of that which I presuppose. That's not tolerable. It's just begging the question on steroids. There's no justification for it. Rumpus has admitted he can't see it, he can't measure it, you can't get within 5% of it. It doesn't exist. It only exists in the maths. We don't have Earth curve. There is no Earth curve. It's only in geometry. It's only in your maths. It's not in the pictures. It's not in reality. I'm done, Brian. You can go ahead.
I'll go.
Sorry, Nathan. I thought you were. Not going to say anything else. No, the only thing I was going to ask is that he said we measure a lot of things without seeing them. Could he come up with a list?
I don't care. I'm asking. No. I don't want a list of things that we can measure that we don't see, and then he's like, "Oh, we can measure air." Well, it's got a qualification. It's got pressure. I don't want to get into these nonsense red herring arguments. I've asked him where the geometric sphere edge horizon, formerly known as Earth curve, is, and he's told us it only exists in maths. It's not in existence in reality. You cannot see it. You cannot measure it. He's told us.
May I interject? They say it comes within 5%. Well, if it's that close, why can't you see it? Then he said effective radius. Well, when I looked that up, it's described as a fictitious value of the Earth's radius. It's all phony.
So you're saying to get around the problem, his justification was to use an effective radius, which is a fictitious value?
Correct.
Oh, right. So he's not got anything other than fiction and mathematics. Doesn't have anything in reality. He can't show me a geometric horizon. He certainly can't come within 5% of something that's never seen and is not capable of measurement. Now, if we did have a sphere beneath our feet, it would have a physical geometric horizon. Because we'd be on a sphere. It's a mandatory part of being stood on something spherical. We're not. Or we'd see it. Now, we don't see the curve of the Earth. We don't see a geometric horizon. We don't experience drop. We're not on a curved Earth. We're not on a ball. It's just philosophy. Earth is obviously and observably flat. The only way to beg the question that you're standing on a sphere is to declare it openly like he has just done with a fictitious position to presuppose that he's got a sphere beneath his feet. Not prove it, not show it, not measure it. Assume it before you've made any examples. Pathetic. You're all fundies. Asking me if I deny refraction. We've gone round in that circle, Rumpus, from the chat. Refraction is based on R for you. You've got 7/6 of the radius as your refraction value. So where are you getting the R from? Well, it's based on a geometric tangent point that you can't see. So your refraction is going to be ham-handedly replaced after describing actual atmospheric conditions with your mathematical R value with 7/6 before it. So you still need a geometric tangent point to give you an R to give you your refraction, Rumpus. You're pathetic, and all you've got is to beg the question of R, and you can't see it, you can't measure it, you claim you come within 5% of it when you beg the question with a fictitious horizon that you'll derive your begging the question fallacy from, and then say that it's within 5% of it, even though you can't see it. Well, refraction in your book has got nothing to do with it because you still need R for your refraction. What are you going to use refraction for? You still need R, you still need a tangent point that you can't see to give you that R. Game over, Rumpus.
It's funny back in the day when he was saying when they were very avid with saying the body of science proves R. He didn't really mention an effective radius, which now he claims will give us our apparent horizon, but then somehow their real radius gives us the geometric one, the one that we can't see. That's a little weird.
Didn't the body of science, though, say that all this refraction was derived on a flat plane?
Shh. Shh. Yeah, they do. Shh. Don't talk about
Horizons we can't see are my favorite.
Hold on, let's not brush
Those are my
past that.
favorite
Hold on,
horizons.
hold on. Let's not brush past that. Are you there, 10th?
Yeah, I'm here.
Can you just reiterate Paul's point for me, please? Did you hear him?
No, so repeat it. Paul.
Yeah, I said, didn't the whole body, or didn't the body of science say that the ideas of refraction were derived on a flat plane?
Well, Andrew Thomas Young, when he is cited as Mr. Refraction expert, says that all his calculations for refraction were done on a plane.
What plane? I thought we lived on a ball.
Well,
Why would they ever do calculations on a plane if we live on a ball?
well, it doesn't end there. Then he says if you wanted to, you got to take geometric consideration if you wanted to make it work on a sphere, and then he gives you a link to go to another page. But how he got all the calculations and the formulas was on a plane. So he basically studied refraction on the plane.
If you want to make it work on the sphere, but I thought we were already on a sphere. Thanks, man.
Well, I'd like to tease that out somewhere. Now, let's think about this. The only way you can study something that's in reality, it has to be real, correct?
Yeah, that's why he did it on the plane.
So you study, right? So again, that doesn't make sense. I mean, if I'm studying the natural world, which refraction is a thing.
No, Paul, you're reading too much into it. It does make sense. He's telling them all of everything I'm telling you happened on the flat Earth, but here's how you reify it to a sphere. That's what he's saying.
Oh, okay. So he actually studied something that was real in the real world, in the real environment, but then somehow he changed it into something that was a conceptual idea that doesn't really exist. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because the globies need their ball at the end of the day, so he makes it into a ball.
Oh, now I understand. I understand. Got it. Gotcha. I get it.
It's like Nathan has always said, they're telling you. You can think of it as this, if you want.
And Rumpus is doing exactly the same. He's telling you that you can take a fictitious horizon and from that derive what an actual horizon in your existence would be if you took geometric consideration with his fictitious horizon that he's going to derive to get within 5% of that which you can't see. Now, if that doesn't sound like nonsense to you, then you're clearly slow. However, he's telling you you can take geometric considerations with a fictitious horizon that's based on the idea that we're on a sphere to begin with.
When you say geometric considerations like that, it almost makes me feel like they're in a church and like the plate is going around like, please hand over your geometric considerations. We need your geometric considerations to keep this up.
Andrew Thomas Young is basically saying that the geometric physical horizon, the edge for a ball, is a thought experiment. It's not physical, but you can think of it by reifying what I'm about to give you. That's what they're doing. They have to take everything that proves a flat plane, and then they have to convert it to a ball. And there they lose right there because it's in their language. Fictitious. Why would you use the word fictitious Earth radius? Effective. Well, why not just a real? Oh, well, we don't have one. Oh, I get it. Okay.
Yeah, there is no real Earth radius. It's just geometric considerations for a presupposition that you're standing on a sphere. That's it. Well, you're not. Like you say, if you were, there'd be no, well, we've done these refraction calculations on a flat surface. However, let's take geometric considerations. Here's how you beg the question of R. No, that wouldn't be necessary. We'd just be on a ball if we were on a ball.
So you have NASA saying to do airplane deviation, you have to assume a flat plane is non-moving. Refraction is determined over a flat surface. What else is there? Anybody else know?
Geodetic surveys using Euclidean principles. After they've begged the question that they've drawn a point to the centre of the Earth, then they map out a plane surface to actually measure. So even the people who begged the question in surveyors' terminologies would also be actually measuring a flat surface using Euclidean principles that demonstrate the Earth is flat.
So, but if they're making it into a globe, they're taking something that's real and reifying it into a globe. I get you.
Correct.
Recalculate it into a globe. I got you.
Correct. Merely a reification fallacy. The whole worldview is a reification fallacy, fundies. And all we're experiencing on this platform is the 5 stages of loss. At the beginning of the show, or
and GPS and
go on, Brian. Go on. Go, Brian, go.
Dude! I just said and GPS. That's it.
I think
And
it's
he
dropped
went
his
back on
signal.
mute. Oh.
Okay, so
And
you're
he
just
dropped.
experiencing the 5 stages of loss. So initially, when you come across this subject as a cursory glance, it's merely denial. And then when you come across a point like now, that's not going to actually jive with your heliocentric religion, it's anger. And then you might consider coming on the show and discussing the matter with us, explaining how you can use a fictitious horizon to derive a horizon that you can never see or measure, so that you can beg the question of being on a sphere Earth when you calculate it out with an R value that you can't see or measure. Now, if you can move past that, you'll be on to depression. It's all very sad. The loss of the globe is quite depressing for those of you who don't realise the wonderment of not knowing and were quite comfortable in the ideas that everyone had figured it out for you. You didn't have to concern yourself with it. But you'll move past that in time to acceptance. But for most of the people who come here, it's a long way in the distance. Never mind.
Yeah, but you're not trying to figure it out, Nathan. That's the difference.
Figure what out?
You're not trying to figure out what's actually going on.
We're being told what it is, though, aren't we? I'm debunking that.
But
What you just said doesn't make sense then.
yeah, he need to find the dome.
Oh, do we? So what you're saying is if you're trying to debunk something, you actually must give the solution to the problem that's being debunked. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, he's saying that.
So at the moment,
No, what you just repeat what you
No.
just said, Nathan.
I said if you're debunking something, you have to actually go to the extent of explaining
saying
what is
before
being
that.
debunked.
What
Oh,
you
I'm
said
going to get
before
talked
that.
through immediately, am I? What a wanker. This guy's going to get removed immediately. So you've asked me something and then immediately talk through me. That's why I'm removing you, in case anybody wants to bitch about why this little asshole's been removed. So I'll answer his question despite the fact that he felt the need to talk through it. My question was, is it necessary to give a full-on explanation for that which you debunk? I was going to go on to give an example of a guy I'm currently calling out called Thunderfoot. Now, when Thunderfoot debunks the assertion that you've got a vacuum-powered tumble dryer by way of showing how thermodynamic laws apply, does he need to show how you would dry clothes effectively in a vacuum in order to debunk that nonsense? No, he doesn't need to provide anything whatsoever in terms of a justification for how you would dry clothes in order to point out what nonsense somebody's punting. Likewise, I can point out that the sky is not a vacuum, and I don't need to tell you what the sky is. I don't need to provide any evidence of some dome that you've told me I need to show you to point out that we've been lied to. Just like Thunderfoot doesn't need to suddenly produce a working vacuum dryer to debunk someone's claims that they've got one that works. You haven't got a sky vacuum, I don't need to prove anything. Hope that's clear for the asshole who decided to speak through me while I asked him if I need to actually provide evidence for something I'm debunking. I don't. Be nice if a few people could share my video with Thunderfoot. You know, he's quite steadfast in his "you're talking nonsense, I can disprove you because I'm a scientist, let's do some maths together," and then simultaneously punts some story a priest's given him about a sky vacuum. whilst describing the thermodynamic laws that had been applied to the men floating around, but not the Earth in the background. So it'd be nice if he understood that by way of somebody sharing my video with him and letting him know that he's selling something, selling a religion. And if he's going to sell that religion, he needs to back up his claims, just like the people he's debunking. So I'm going to start aggressively going after this Thunderfoot dude. Now put it out to a public audience and my members. Green light, thumbs up. Yeah, go after this arsehole. So yeah, I will. No worries.
That reference I read on fictitious, the radius effective, a fictitious value, that came from the American Association of Geographers, where they're talking about mapping sciences, where they say we must embrace the fiction in our science. If this isn't clear enough, ballers, your ball requires fiction.
Oh, is that because we need to know what we can measure and what we can't measure? And for what we can't measure, we have to embrace the fiction? Is it something like that? Yeah?
That's correct.
Yeah. And then they come up with some wizard trick. Well, if there was no atmosphere, we would see it. Now, see, that's a trick to get the ballers to think it's actually there. But if they're within
how do we verify that?
hang on. But if they're within 5% of it, then how can you not? I mean, Nathan, you nailed them there. Because if they're within 5% of it, how do they know? Unless you take the atmosphere out.
Can I try, Tent Man? Like a Biruni?
Yeah, go ahead.
Like I'm Biruni, I'm go to mountain, and I watch the horizon, and I say it's 4159, and I look and I say, oh my God, there is refraction. If I calculate 5%, that means it's not 4159, it's 3959. That's it. That's for sure. It must be 3959, and that's it. That's the story.
And what
Right.
did you
So
get?
what you
Where did you
did?
get
Sorry.
the 5%?
So what you
took
did?
the words out of my
you
mouth.
presumed.
Hold on. Took the words out of my mouth. Say it again, Chocolate.
Where did you get that 5% from?
Yeah, because when I watched Horizon, I presume that it's 4, because I saw with in that time I saw with the how you say binocular that is 4 miles, because 5% is like 200 miles,
But
And I saw
5%
that
of
it's
what?
200 miles
Hold on,
more.
you scared the question. 5% of what?
Yeah, I know, Nathan. Because I came on the mountain knowing that it's sphere.
I see.
Of course, I didn't go on the mountain like, oh my God, look, curve is there. I knew it that it's sphere, of course.
It's all right. We already know the jive with Al Biruni. He was trying to measure the geometric sphere edge that is formerly known as Earth curve. He couldn't see it. It can't be measured. It only exists in maths. But he was definitely trying to measure it. And from that, an R value was derived that they can then give you a fictitious horizon for you to later derive a geometric horizon because you can't see it.
But for me, it's important how he calculated that 5%. That was 5% exactly, 4%, because that is 200 miles from that calculation. That means 200 miles up, down, 100 miles, 138 miles. How much? How much was refraction that day? Or how much time he was on the mountain? 1 time, 10 times?
Well, unfortunately, we've asked Rumpus how did he get that 5% from something that he can't see, and he still hasn't been able to answer that. So,
No, he did. He did.
are.
He said no. He said you use the I've forgotten the name of the with so many horizons you lose track. What was the horizon he used in this example? The fictitious horizon that is the effective
radius.
Yeah, you use the effective horizon, which is based on the geometric horizon that he can't see. So in other words, how you get around this is you beg the question and assume your outcome. Like every single globe proof ever, they never are globe proofs. They're all just an assumption that you're on a globe to begin with. That's all they ever do. And that's all he did. Well, you assume effective radius, and that's based on geometric. So when he's measuring something, he doesn't really need to measure anything because we've already got a geometric radius value. And what he's going to measure is going to be within 5% of that because we've already got it.
Funny how the fictitious, right? The fictitious radius gives us a measurement to the horizon that we can see, which is they're calling now the apparent horizon. But then their real radius, they don't use that because that gives us the measurement to the geometric horizon, which we can't see.
And Al-Biruni was measuring.
Right. That we can't see.
That means that Biruni was measuring refraction on horizon, nothing else.
Yeah, the refraction that's going to be utilised by the globe side of this argument is based on radius. That's what he said from the chat after I kicked him out. That was his last hurrah. Well, you're ignoring radius. No. Your radius... No, ignoring refraction. You're ignoring refraction. Well, your refraction's based on radius. 7/6r, terrestrial, otherwise known as standard refraction. So you're still going to need an r to assert refraction. Well, when you're asking about Al-Biruni measuring the damn thing, if you can't see it, that's game over. End of globe. Untenable model. When are they going to get it? It's nearly 7 months of us telling them this.
Well, maybe we should just refer to this thing that Al-Biruni did as Al-Biruni's failure. You know, because didn't he fail to actually measure the geometric horizon?
No, he gave them R win.
Exactly. So he failed. He didn't actually physically measure anything. He just presupposed. So it's a failure. Even though people are using it as a base proof for R.
Yeah, it's not just a failure for Al. Nope. It's not just a failure for Bubby. It's a failure for the entire model.
Yeah. But maybe if we call it...
Maybe that's why they refer back to... Maybe that's why... I'm sorry, Owen. Maybe that's why they choose to refer back to Aristophanes. Because Bubby kind of failed them. With measuring a horizon that you can't see. At least you can actually measure angles from the
right. Nobody can beat a good stick in the ground.
Well, Aristophanes pre-assumed a sphere, and he pre-assumed a size and a distance to a sun.
Took the words out of my mouth. Took the words out of my mouth. It's even in the literature, often in the first sentence, like when they argue it, the programming is there in the texts. So it'll say, and then he presupposed the Earth was a sphere. It'll tell you, it's right there in the text.
Nathan, I got the full context of that statement on Master B of the radius of Earth effective, and there's so many potholes in it. Go ahead if you want to.
It's on.
I know you're going to tear it apart.
No, it's on. Go ahead.
All right. Radius of the Earth effective, a fictitious value of the Earth's radius, which, when used in a formula for the distance from a point to the geometric horizon, gives the same answer as would using the true value of the radius in a formula for the distance to the apparent horizon. We can tear that one apart first.
We will, but we'll be doing it in the after show. So with that, I'll say if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you're watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. A huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat. I think there was actually a couple that I didn't read out, so no, just one. Unitox Femu, what does Neil deGrasse Tyson think about Rumpus's opinion? Good question. I have no idea. Nevertheless, thank you very much indeed for the super chat, Unitox Femu. As I say, stay tuned if you're watching on one of the premiere streams. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!